So we just covered the synagogue. Now we're going to cover the Shabbos meal, the Shabbat meal. Anyways, first, how does one get to a Shabbat meal? Well, one thing you must understand about Shabbat meals is that you don't have to wait for someone to invite you. You could try to invite yourself. Now, this doesn't apply for every Jewish family, but typically the more religious they are, the more they want guests. Now, I'm going to try to explain different ways you could ask your way into a Shabbos meal. First, approach the rabbi. Tell him that you're looking for a Shabbos meal, and if he doesn't take you in himself, he'll find you a family to join. Secondly, you could go up and ask people if they have room in their Shabbos table for you. If they say no, they'll most likely reschedule with you for another Shabbos. Why? Because friends, it's a huge mitzvah to host guests for Shabbos. So in a way, you're doing them a favor. So here's a guide on how to survive a Shabbos meal invite. First of all, if you meet them at shul, don't tell them to give you their address and you'll drive there. No, walk there with them. And if you get to the front door before they do, don't ring the doorbell. This is an area that many forget. Remember, we're not allowed to handle any electrical devices on Shabbos, which includes a doorbell, so be careful. Actually, if you really want to impress them, bring them a bottle of wine or a box of cookies. But please remember to make sure that whatever you bring is kosher and contains a visible hechsher. And regarding wine, whatever you do, don't bring Manischewitz or some other cheap wine. Shoot for a bottle of $15 and up. And when you bring cookies, please make sure that they're parve and not dairy, because Shabbos meals are always meat. And in Judaism, we don't mix the two. Now, after you've made your way into their home and they're about to sit at the table, always ask your host where he wants you to sit. Because Orthodox Jews typically don't like men sitting with the opposite sex unless they're married to them and vice versa. And if the meal is on Friday, you will first start out singing some songs and then make Kiddush. On Saturdays, there's typically no singing before Kiddush, right? Now, Kiddush is the blessing over the wine. So as the host is reciting Kiddush, don't talk and just say amen when everyone else does. After you take your sip of wine or grape juice, then you could talk. Now, right after Kiddush, people will get up and wash for bread. So just do what they do. If you want to prepare, there are videos on YouTube that show you the procedure of washing your hands before bread, but you could just follow everyone else. And if you don't know the prayer, just stay quiet after the wash and then dry your hands, right? The way to wash your hands is to fill the wash cup, right? You pick it up with your right hand, then you pass it to your left hand before pouring, then pour it twice on your right hand, then pass it back to your right hand and pour it twice on your left hand. Then raise your hands chest level and say the blessing, or in your case, if you don't know the words, just stay quiet and then dry your hands. But again, there are a few videos on YouTube that can guide you through the whole process with the blessing and all. Now, this part is where the majority of people screw up. After you wash your hands, you cannot speak till after you hear the blessing over the bread, typically made by the host, and you eat some bread. Then you could talk. Well, anyways, friends, if you made it this far without messing up too bad, the rest shouldn't be too hard. So after you eat the bread, the meal begins. You will notice that you'll have two plates in front of you, one on top of the other usually. The top one is your fish plate and the bottom one is the meat one, right? Jews don't mix fish and meat in their meals. So you also have two sets of forks for the same purpose. Now, it doesn't matter which fork you use for what, but once you use the fork or plate for fish, you can't use it for meat during the rest of the meal. But anyways, you'll notice that after the fish course, they will go around and gather the fish plates and utensils and throw them away, right? And leave you with the ones used for meat, right? And that's pretty much it. If you keep the cursing to a minimum and chew your food with your mouth closed, you're golden, right? Actually, there is one thing that many people accidentally do, and that is turn on or off lights when they enter a room or a bathroom, right? You will notice that Jews leave bathroom lights on all Shabbos. So if you turn it off when you're done, they'll have no light during Shabbos. So don't forget, don't touch switches. And there's one more thing that you may encounter in many Orthodox tables, and that's mayim achronim, literally after waters. You will see that they'll pass a little vessel around to wash the tips of your fingers. This is done in the same manner that you wash your hands earlier, but again, just the tips of the fingers. This usually only applies to men. Women usually don't do this and just skip the practice or hand the vessel to the guy next to them. So after washing the tips of your fingers, one shouldn't talk till reciting the Birkas Hamazon, the grace after meals, benching, or whatever you want to call it. So don't make the mistake of asking to leave before the benching or grace after meals is recited, because this is unheard of and will expose you as an amateur. But if you have to leave, ask your host if you could bench on your own before everybody else, because you're in a rush, and this is fine. But during the benching, the host will either lead it or appoint another male to do so. And all you have to do is just do what everyone else does. The people you're eating out will give you these little books called benchers to follow along with. If they ask you to lead and you're not Jewish or don't know how, just decline for personal reasons. It's not a big deal. Now, after the meal, don't linger around for too long, and just thank your host for a wonderful meal and wish them a Shabbat Shalom or a good Shabbos. Also, remember that you can't write or tear anything on Shabbos. Also, you can't use the phone, so if you're driving home, give your host every impression that you're actually walking. And really, you should be walking. So, what are you waiting for? Go find a synagogue and start attending, and invite yourself for a Shabbos meal. And if you're hearing me today and you're either a non-Jew or an unaffiliated Jew, I want to welcome you to consider Judaism. And if you're a non-Jew and you're interested in converting to Judaism, please visit Torah Judaism International at torahjudaism.org. And if you're interested in learning more about Judaism, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.